Well, hi guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 6:30 by my clock, so we've still got people joining in. If you didn't take our little 2-second poll, if you would just do that. Like I said, it's a new feature. I just typed that in the chat area that I thought we could try out tonight. So it's something new, a little bit different, just, for fun. It's not like I'm going to, grade you on it or anything, but I thought you might want to see how it works. So I've got a lot of people that I see are here, but I don't see their pictures. So I see Danielle, I see Erica, and I see Elizabeth, but that's the only people I see. Oh, there we go. Now we're coming in. Looks like we got a smaller crowd tonight.
Tracy.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I wanted to tell you, normally the link on Moodle is directly to Zoom, and tonight it's just a Word document, so I couldn't get on through Zoom. I had to go through your email. Just while there's a lower amount of people tonight.
Okay. Oh, I had one of those days. We have our accreditation visit for the Masters of Counseling program. And somehow every time we have an accreditation visit, I get to be in charge of logistics. So today I spent the entire day moving tables from the 3rd floor to the 1st floor and moving chairs from the 3rd floor to the 1st floor all by myself. So by the time I remember to send y'all a reminder, there's no telling what I sent you, quite honestly. I'm so tired physically. So my fault, sorry about that. Well, let's go ahead and get started, though, and talk about what we're going to tonight. Hopefully you guys were able to find the link for the presentation. It was in the email that I sent, and then also I did post the Zoom meeting information in Moodle under the Documents and Resources piece as well. So it's also posted there. But I wanted to veer a little bit differently tonight. We've spent some time talking about personality assessments and leadership styles and all of those kind of things. But I wanted to start first tonight by focusing on different kinds of learning. When you are a part of a PLC or if you are leading a PLC, there are going to be times that you want to employ different kinds of learning to really support and help your teachers. Now, these are also things that can be done with your students to support and assist them. But before we do that, I do want to spend just a couple minutes talking about the group project. I've been getting lots of questions. So technically today is the deadline. If you don't want to be in a group, please let me know. I'm hoping by tomorrow, if not on Saturday, I will send something out to everybody with your new groups and those people that are just going to work individually. But keep in mind that it's a pretty massive project, and the more that you can work with others, the better. And this is a class on professional learning communities, so doing it virtually is certainly a benefit if possible. Oh, hey Joanne, I saw that. That's okay. Don't worry about it if your webcam's not working. So, do you guys have any questions about the assignment or anything like that? Of course, you guys have got it all together.
I sent you a message in your virtual office. I don't know if did you see that one?
I may not have yet.
Okay. Well, I probably should go back and read it because now I don't remember what my questions are.
Okay, fair enough.
Try because I pulled it up. I was a little confused about exactly what a crosswalk is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Elaborate on that, and also the example that you provided us. I don't really understand what's going on.
Okay.
The first page, I don't know if you have access to pull it up too fast, but the first page talks about, one of the columns talks about the type of PLC, and the second page then says in that same column, method of evaluation. I'm just not sure how it all ties together.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to pull something up here, and I'll share it with you guys on the screen, so give me just a second. Okay. Really not the one I wanted, but it'll do. Okay, so we'll go to an easy grade. We'll go to okay, let me get back to Zoom and see if I can share my screen. Hang on, I gotta pull. Sorry. My computer and I are not getting along tonight. It's not letting me do what I need to do. What's going on here? No, that's not working either. Sorry, I'm trying to, there we go. I lost my screen at the bottom somehow. Okay, so what I'm going to show you guys is, as soon as I can figure out where I put it, there it is. Okay. All right, so these are standards from, actually I pulled the Texas state standards just because I think they're a little bit easier to discern than maybe like Louisiana's or Common Core. So what a crosswalk is, it's a way for you to break down and unpack a standard so that you really know exactly what it is that needs to be taught effectively within that standard. It also helps you to understand the depth and complexity of the standard and the information, as well as how it's more than likely going to be assessed on the state assessment at the end of each year. So I pulled PE, physical education, for grade 1. Now I know there's not a standardized test with that, but I did choose PE because it's a pretty great example for a crosswalk. So what you're doing in that crosswalk is you're going to pick a standard. Now, I don't care what standard you pick. That is completely up to you. If I were doing it, I would do something that's helpful to me. When I taught high school English, I would have pulled a 9th grade English standard. When I was a principal and I was doing teacher evaluations, I might pull a standard from the ISSLC standards, which are leadership standards. It is completely up to you and your group. You don't have to do 4 standards from each one of those. Just pick one standard from your state student standards, ISSLC, or SLLA, or content standards, or whatever. I gave you several different options. So you're going to pick a total of 4 standards. And then using the crosswalk document, you're going to break it down. So let's start, and I don't know that I can highlight this very well for y'all, but if you notice right here, it says this standard in Texas is standard 116.3, physical education, grade 1. Then you see an introduction. That introduction is the overview of what should be taught in 1st grade physical education under this standard. What we are most interested in are what are called the knowledge and skills standards. Those are the things that you actually have to teach overtly, plus they're going to be found on your on your student assessments. So in this one, the first one is called movement. The student demonstrates competency in fundamental movement patterns and proficiency in a few specialized movement forms. The student is expected to. This is where the real meat comes in. Unfortunately, unless you've actually been taught or had a great principal, or maybe you learned it in your undergrad program, a lot of people don't understand that this is not the standard. This is just a part of the introduction. The actual standards are very specific. So you go A through H. So the first one is demonstrate an awareness of personal and general space while moving at different directions and levels such as high, medium, and low. So if you look at the crosswalk, and I'll do my best to get that up here too, guys. I don't know that I can, but let me try, okay? So hang on. I have to switch to Moodle real quick. And my computer is going to be slow. There it is, Moodle. Okay. And come on. I was logged in just a second ago. There we go. Okay, let me get TL's course here. Okay. All right, so let's see. Where do we have all this fun stuff? Okay, group assignment. Okay. Like I said, forgive me, guys. It takes, what I see is different than what you guys see. So this may take me a second. If I were at my computer at work, I could just pull it directly off my desktop, but I'm not. Okay, here we go. Nope, that's not it either. If one of you guys have it up, if you want to, you can just share screen with us and we can see it that way. It might be faster than me looking. Okay, here we go. I just got to find the right line. There we go. It's crosswalk. Okay. Yes, please open. Okay, can y'all see this? Can you see my Moodle page? Okay. All right. So what you're going to do is we're going to have to toggle back and forth between the standard and the Moodle page. I can do that. So what you're going to start with is you're going to actually be looking right here, and you'll notice that.
Miss Tracy, we can't see it yet. It's still on your email page. You might have to reshare it.
Okay, here guys. Let's see if it'll come back up. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to choose a standard. And I say 2 here. So the total number, I need to update this for you guys, is 2 standards, 1 each from, or 2 standards total from ISSLC, SLLA, etc. And then 2 more that are student standards, okay? Not 4. So you only have to do 4 total. And when you look at that standard, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find the verb, okay? So if I can make this work and I can actually get back to the right page for you guys. Hold on. Sorry. This is like impossible to see. Here we go. Okay, can y'all see this page still now, the standard?
We're still on the crosswalk page.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I said it's a pain in the neck for me to go back and forth, but that's okay. Okay, now you should be able to see the standard. So the first thing you're going to do is find the verb. Okay, so look at 1A. What's the verb? It's pretty simple. Anybody?
Demonstrate.
Great.
There you go, demonstrate, okay? So if you're going to demonstrate, then all you would have to do, and like I said, guys, forgive me. This is
right onto Louisiana 3034.
This is like really hard for me to go between because I have so many pages open. No, that's not it. Okay, sorry. So anyway, you're going to fill out the form based on what it says at the top. So first thing you're going to do is find the verb. Then you're going to find the noun. So the verb is demonstrate. Your nouns are going to be awareness. Then you're going to look for other phrases that give you an idea of what needs to be done. And basically, you're taking out all extraneous words or phrases. So if I were to break this one down, I would say that students need to demonstrate awareness, personal, general space, moving, directions, and then high, medium, and low, okay? So you're looking at the verb, the nouns, and the adjectives. And once you're able to do that, then, let me see if I can make this switch, hang on. Can y'all see this one, the crosswalk now? Because I can't.
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet.
No.
Okay, crosswalk up or not?
No.
No, ma'am, it's
No.
still in the standard.
Yeah, sorry guys. Like I said, this is just like impossible to do. It doesn't like me right now. Okay, here we go. I have to keep going back and forth. And anyway, all right. So I'm going to take that standard. So you can see that they've given you an example. So this is a Louisiana Learning Standard A6. And
Goals,
it
capital.
has to do something with classifying for kindergarten students, classifying food into groups. So what's the verb? Classify. What's the adjective? Various. What was the object? Food into the major groups. So all you're doing is taking a standard, and like I said, writing out the verbs, the adjectives, and the object. Then as a group, you're going to decide, okay, what kind of a PLC is going to be the best kind to address that standard. So in this case, if I'm looking at a kindergarten standard, probably going to be a PLC made up of kindergarten teachers. So you'll see the type, kindergarten team. Then you're going to decide what kind of an activity is the PLC, not the students, the PLC going to do that will address a particular standard. So in this example, since we want the students to learn how to classify food into groups, the kindergarten teachers are talking about it in their professional learning community, and what they decide, what they're going to do, the activity to address that is they're going to design a unit on foods and food groups. Okay? Now, in the first example here, that's a standard from ISSLC. It's actually standard 1. And the verb is, or the verbs or phrase is facilitating the development, articulation, implementation, and stewardship. So notice this standard has some really important parts. There's facilitation that has to happen. There's articulation, implementation, and stewardship. What is the I'm sorry?
We're still seeing the PE standard. I can't see the other one.
Okay, is anybody else still not seeing this? Because it showed me that you guys were. Hang on.
I'm still seeing the PE as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, PE.
Me too.
Sorry, I thought it switched over. Did it now?
Yes.
Yeah, now it's good to go.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, like I said, it said for me it was sharing, but who knows. Okay, so anyway, in the first example, you can see the verbs. The adjectives are that these have to be shared and supported. And what are we doing? It's a vision of learning. Well, the ISSLC standards are teacher or professional standards. They are not for students. It is a national standard, so it goes under the national column, whereas the first example is a state standard, so you just put it under the state column. So the first question you ask yourself once you break it down is, what kind of PLC needs to address this? Well, this has to do with, as we talked about, professionals, teachers, etc. So the type of PLC that would be addressing it might be an instructional team. It could be the administrators. It could be campus leadership. It could be the department chairs. You decide what kind of PLC needs to do that. What are they going to do? Well, one way to begin to address this particular standard, they decide, is in their PLC, they're going to work on vision and mission development. Okay? So that's all the crosswalk is. Break down a standard. Tell me what standard it is. Is it national or is it state? What type of PLC is best suited to address that in your opinion? And what kind of activity is the PLC going to do that will begin to address this standard? So the activities in PLCs are generally going to be development, design, write a lesson plan, create an assessment, write questions for a test bank. It's not things that you're going to do with students necessarily. Does that make sense?
I have a quick question.
Can I ask another question then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Going down to the other pages, they all seem to be about food. So I kind of thought that it was some kind of vertical planning. What is the significance of the second page? Is that a separate one?
No, the second page is just another example, and yes, this is actually from a school in Idaho. I wanted to give you a real life example, and they were doing a vertical plan through their PLCs, and this is the work that they did to create the crosswalk based on their state standards. You don't have to do that. That is just simply an example, so people can see that there's a lot of different uses for this template, and particularly in vertical planning. Because if you want to stay in the food theme, it starts out in kindergarten, but then what this particular school did was they moved on through various grade levels, even including on into chemistry, to create a vertical plan. That's all it is. But I'm not expecting you to do that. That is just an example, because I want to make sure that you guys have templates and examples and stuff that you can use on into the future. Okay? But all you have to do is pick 2 standards for professionals, 2 standards for students, and all you're doing is this little part right here, like the first 2 examples. That's it. Okay?
Tracy, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the standards that you were showing us that was listed A, B, C, D, and all the way down, do we list each one of those? Is A classified, then we go to B, and on the next line?
No, all you have to do if you're using the Texas example, all you would have to do is list like the A part or the B part. You don't have to list if there's A through F. You don't have to list all of those. Because like I said, we're trying to deal with just one standard at a time, and all I'm wanting you, the purpose behind this is I want you to spend some time looking at standards, both state and national, and I want you to learn how to unpack or break them down, and then how specifically a PLC would use that kind of information to guide students or teachers on into the future. Okay, so don't make it more complicated. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have a blank template, or do you want us to just kind of delete this one?
There is at the very bottom of the document, right there. There is the blank part. You can just copy and paste that, or if you want to, you can just fill in on the first page under the examples. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Do what's easiest.
Gotcha.
Okay. And I'll update this and reload it tonight. Instead of it saying 4 student standards, it should only be 2. In fact, I could probably do that.
So total, I have a question.
Total of 4.
Total is 4.
Yeah, 2 professional or teacher or leader type standards, 2 student standards. For a
I
total
have
of
a
4.
question about the template.
Yeah.
Where we have the state standard and national standard columns, you know how these just have hyperlinks to the standard page? Should we do the same thing?
Yeah, in fact, these are hyperlinks too, and yeah, if you want to, that would be great. That way I can go in and see the standard as opposed to having to look it up separately. Good question, Maureen. Thank you. Okay. All right, so is this all just clear as mud right now? I promise it's really not a hard task. I just want you to spend some time, because one of the most important things that you will learn that a professional learning community needs to do is spend time in the standards. Far too often everybody's like, well, we have a curriculum for our, school parish or our district or whatever, and so we follow the curriculum. Curriculums are imperfect at best. No one, even if you're a really awesome expert at curriculum development, it's just never perfect. And teachers have to spend time in here to really understand, what is being taught and to the depth and complexity. And I would even, I guess I would advocate for even this standard here for kindergarten. Now, most states don't have kindergarten standardized testing, thank goodness, but I would not teach this standard at the classify level. I would teach it at a much higher level, so that way you're assured when it is assessed that your students are going to be prepared. Okay? All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that, and let me see if I can go back real quick to, hang on. I just want to move it down. Okay, let me see if I can pull up. Let me close that out. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to try to share this again, so y'all bear with me. Yeah, it doesn't let me do half the things I want to do. Okay, I was going to try to pull the standards back up for y'all, but it's not letting me right now. Let me come back. There we go. Okay, share screen. And share screen. Here we go. Okay. So someone was asking, and since I got the standard back up, if you wanted to do like from Texas, and let's say you decided to use this example, which is fine, what you would show me is this part right here. So if you want to do A, you can do that. You can do F. You can do whatever. I probably wouldn't be too happy if you did G, jumping a long rope, just because that's a little simple. I would hope that you would want to look at something a little more complex so you get things out of this. But you can see, like Stacy was talking about, you could use this tool to build a really awesome vertical plan because the standards certainly do that. And there is a spiraling of the standards starting back here in kindergarten. So for example, they talk about, let me find one. So balance is one that's carried out. So you could write unpack the standard related to balance in kinder, and then decide what that's going to look like and how you're going to plan that unit. You could turn around and do the same thing then in first grade, because notice right here again, control and balancing and traveling activities. That's going to carry on into second grade, where we're still talking about balance, but now we've brought in symmetrical and non-symmetrical shapes. Moving on into third, we're still talking about proper body alignment, which is a part of balance, as we know. On and on and on, because ultimately that's how you get congruency in your curriculum. Okay? All right. Other questions? Okay, I'm just looking to, yes, you can. Yeah, a tool as crosswalk is really nothing more than a tool to unpack standards. The difference is with the crosswalk, there's one added piece, and that is how you're going to address or plan that standard through the PLC. Okay, most, there's a million different templates out there for unpacking standards. The difference with a crosswalk is it takes you into, okay, we've unpacked the standard, now what? So in this instance, for our class purposes, it's what kind of PLC, and then what is the PLC going to do to address that standard? And like we said, it could be design a unit, create a lesson plan, make an assessment. They could do professional development. There's a million different activities that the PLC could do. But crosswalks are different because it takes you directly into the planning piece. Okay? Stacey, you're looking confused. Did I just make it worse?
You did great explaining it. I really appreciate it.
No. If you had the question, I'm sure everybody else did too. And I don't care if you want to use Prezi, PowerPoint, Google Slides, whatever you want to do is fine. I have access to all of those. All right. Good? Any other questions about the group project? We've only had a few people opt out so far, so groups probably will stay pretty intact, so that's a good thing. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit tonight. So we talked about unpacking standards. Let's talk about some more things that should be done in a professional, in a professional learning community. Oftentimes, as we've talked about, professional learning communities can be nothing more than a gripe session, or an administrative planning session, or you're given a list of things to accomplish or do, like a checklist from the campus leadership. That is really not terribly effective, quite frankly. A professional learning community should be grown organically, and it should be led by the people who are part of it. Now, there are certain standards and things that should be commonplace in professional learning community, starting with establishing norms. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. And then the next piece of it is you also have to have a vision and a mission for your professional learning community. Without that, you're not going to have any idea where you're going. So one of the first things that I would suggest you do is you start planning that vision and mission together. Once you're able to do that, it will give your team something to work towards, and it will create a sense of unity. Oftentimes I get the question, what do you do when you have somebody in a professional learning community who's, not wanting to participate, or they are difficult and challenging and all of those kind of things. One of the most important pieces is when there is a shared vision, and that vision should describe very specifically what you want to accomplish. So what is the outcome? So the vision might be that we want 90% of our students to be proficient in reading by the end of the school year, as assessed by our state assessment test. And so that's the vision. That's what you want to accomplish. Then the mission becomes, how are you going to go about doing that? So vision and mission are essential. The other piece of a good professional learning community includes data and data analysis. So if you're not talking about data and looking at it and using it, then you really are kind of just shooting in the dark. So remember, in terms of data, in fact, those of you that are in my 707 class, we're going to talk about this tonight too. There are two kinds of data that, particularly in schools, you have access to. One is called historical. The other is current. Historical data, it's like when you know, everybody took the end of the year test back in April or May of last year, and you come back to school in August, and you spend a day sitting, you know, in a faculty meeting, and you go through all the data. Well, you know, that's great and wonderful, but it's historical. It's already happened. You can't do anything to affect it or to impact it. So I'm not saying ignore it, but don't make it the most, I wouldn't spend a whole day on it. First of all, you don't have those same students anymore. They've all progressed on to the next grade level, hopefully, and you cannot affect a change. The data that's most useful and helpful and absolutely is central to an effective PLC is current data. Now you're probably thinking, okay, that's great, but where do I get current data? Remember, a professional learning community doesn't work just in isolation. It's not like we do one thing this week and we do something completely unrelated next week. There has to be a system and a cycle. And the way that cycle looks is you start off with your PLC. Personally, I would do some team building. Those assessments are one tool to do some team building, get some camaraderie going. Then I would spend some time developing those norms and expectations. Then I would move into creating that shared vision and mission for the team. Once you do that, then move into and talk about standards and unpack them. So you know what it is your students need to know and learn. Once you've unpacked those standards, then I would pull out that old state assessment and that state assessment data and look at that, those two things in relation to each other. So what I mean is, let's say you notice that in reading, third grade reading, that all of the students really seem to struggle with drawing conclusions. You know, only 10% got proficient. The other 90% did not master that skill. So the data historically helps you to identify the trend. Once you do that, you go back and look at the standard and see how that standard is designed and meant to be taught. Then you pull out, if you're fortunate enough to have copies of release tests or things like that, and look at that test very in depth, and you find how and where that particular standard is being tested on the test. Okay? Once you identify that, then you have to go back and say, the standard is asking us to have students analyze a reading selection, and here's how it's being assessed on the actual test. Obviously, our students didn't get it right, so now we have to go even further and start looking at and doing error analysis. When you do error analysis, you're looking at, let's say there's 4 multiple choices, A, B, C, and D. The correct answer was A, but the majority of your students who got it wrong chose D. You have to start looking very closely and tying it all together to figure out, well, why would they choose D? Then you go into what we're going to talk more specifically about. Probably won't get through it all tonight. We'll have to continue next week. How is it that we're teaching that particular standard and that particular element? Because something is missing based on that good historical data. As a part of that as well, you have to be gathering current data. So, we talk all the time about formative assessment, summative assessment, and those are just nice big words. But in reality, what you should be doing is once you identify that problem area and you think about what's the most effective way to teach it so that it is actually being taught in a way that when it's assessed, students are going to be successful, how do you know that on a daily basis? So I'm a huge fan of demonstrations of learning, which is just a quick check every day to see if kids got what I wanted them to get. And that is the most critical data that you should be using in your professional learning community. And it's current. It's formative, it's current. So it's like, gosh, only 60% of my kids got this today. I've got to figure out a different way to reteach it tomorrow. I don't let it go 2 weeks. I don't let it go 3 weeks. I do it immediately. So the professional learning community is the hub where all of that thinking, planning, discussion, dialogue, debate happens on a very frequent basis. Okay? That is the entire work of a great PLC. So if your principal's coming in and giving you the checklist of 50 things to do, I think I would respectfully just ask for a private conversation and say, you know what, this is how we do PLCs. And if you will just give us the freedom to do this for a year, you're going to see tremendous growth, because I promise you, if you do it that way, it actually happens and you will be successful. Okay? Okay, so somebody was asking about how do you know which standards are nice to know and which are to keep, drop, create? Excellent question. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bill Daggett. He is one of my favorite educational gurus and researchers. He has done, if you've ever heard people talk about rigor, relevance, and relationships, he's the one that came up with that a long time ago. He's also a futurist, so it's just really kind of fun to listen to and to read. Bill Daggett has done a very comprehensive analysis on standards. And based on his analysis and research, he says you can throw away 75% of your standards and your kids would still be incredibly prepared to do well on the assessments. So how do you know which ones are the ones that you absolutely have to keep and teach? Those become what I call high-stakes standards. And the only way to know what is a high-stakes standard is going to be from basically 3 sources. Most states put out some sort of a test blueprint or framework or something like that. They all call them something slightly different. But go in and look at how often particular standards are tested and how many times there are specific questions on the state assessment. So for example, the last time I did a really comprehensive look at some of the Texas state assessments, particularly in reading, drawing conclusions, making inferences, all those kind of things were in there constantly, over and over and over. That became a high-stakes standard for us. What wasn't quite as high a stake, by the time you get to 3rd grade, you shouldn't be teaching main idea all the time. You should be teaching at that higher level. Standards that are dropped, if it doesn't appear on that state blueprint, don't teach it. Now, sometimes teachers say, but you have to teach that to be able to scaffold it to, get ready for the next set of learning. Not always. Be more discriminatory in terms of looking at those standards and deciding how essential they are or they're not. The other piece that I look at besides those blueprints or frameworks is if there are release tests. That is a great source of information. And most of those release tests, they will also give you supplemental information that shows what, like question number 1 is tied to standard 116A1, for example. And look specifically at those alignments between standards and how often you're seeing certain standards tested. But look and see as well, how are they asking students to respond? And again, the laundry list of state standards is very, very long, whether you're in Louisiana, Texas, Florida, New Jersey, wherever. But if it's not being tested, guys, and I'm not saying teach to the test, but there's more to teach than you can possibly do. There's just not enough time. So find those high stakes ones. Then the last piece that I look at is not only my state standards, but my district or my school parish curriculum. One of the things that we found when we did a curriculum audit in Dallas was we were teaching a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't need to be teaching. And quite honestly, we pared our curriculum down pretty significantly. And going through that process, we realized that we were asking teachers and students to spend times in areas that weren't assessed very often or very frequently. So it's not a simple question, guys. It's not something you just go through and go, well, I'll do every other one or something like that. I wish it were that simple. But when you spend time and energy through your professional learning community in that kind of work, you're going to find that you not only hone the teaching directly to what the students need, but more importantly, you're going to raise the level of rigor in your classrooms, and you're going to ensure that your students are prepared to be successful, not only on those state assessments, but as they move from grade level to grade level to grade level. Okay. Yeah, Texas has created an assessed standard set. So yeah, Texas finally caught on and did that. I don't think Louisiana has. They're a little bit behind with their curriculum standards. Other questions or comments or concerns? I'm looking to see as we kind of go through here. We're way off topic tonight, but that's okay. Hopefully it's a good discussion. Okay. All right. So I was reading everybody's essays, and you guys did a great job. We had really good success on this, but I gave some notes to some of y'all and asked you to share. So give us Any of you that would like to, what are some things that you have seen that, in a PLC that's like the greatest thing ever that you want to share or you think would be helpful for the good of the group, or maybe something that's been not so successful and you need some help and some ideas?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Hey, Tammy.
Hi. So I have a question about how I should address this. We have PLCs in my school. However, my principal is extremely data driven.
Okay.
And we are a school that has checklists over and over. And I'm not exactly sure how to make the PLCs effective. Like, I'm not the first grade team leader, even though I teach first grade, but I would like to help. And most of the teachers at my school are going, this data driven stuff is just too much. So how do I stay like inconspicuous while following what I do?
Data-driven instruction is important, but guys, data that we just, how do I say it politically correctly? If all you do is live in data, you don't ever move into action or planning or teaching. Data is a part of an effective PLC. I mean, if you never talk about data, you've got just the opposite kind of problem. But the data should be something that you are using to guide your learning and your instructional planning. If you're not doing that and just checking off the boxes, I'm just telling you, you might as well just not even have the meeting. You're wasting your time. So, Cammie, what I think I would do is, maybe just ask for a conference or a meeting with the principal or with the team leader or whatever and say, hey, I'm a big fan of sharing books and resources. Dufour is the guy for professional learning communities on how it should be done effectively. And this is what they're saying. So I was wondering if it'd be okay if we incorporated some of these pieces. Because like I said, if you're not acting on the data and the information, and really the best part of a PLC is great planning, making sure that you've got like the best lessons ever for your students, because if you don't do that, they're just not going to be successful. Other ideas for Cammie, guys? Anybody else in the same situation? Okay. Somebody share that's in a great PLC. Somebody share that experience. Anybody in a good one? Okay, that just makes me sad.
I'll share.
Okay, thank you.
We don't actually call ours PLCs, but we do like weekly data meetings and observation feedback meetings. Well, our weekly data meetings I would think are more PLC like, because it includes like the grade level teacher and supporting teachers. So we actually have these protocols where they have to like unpack the standard, and then we have a discussion about what does the standard require students to know and be able to do, and then looking at the task and how the task addresses the standard, and then looking at the student work and like game planning, like how we're going to respond to the errors and trends we see in the student work. And then they're actually turning around to like implement the next day or the next week based on that data.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. That's a great example. That is how it should be done, guys. And like she was talking about, you have to act immediately on it. Don't let it sit and fester for, days or weeks, because by then you've moved on in instruction and the kids can be lost. But if you don't spend time, like I said, with really planning and thinking it through and how can we best teach our students, then the data itself is kind of for naught. Now, some schools do, and I don't know, I have mixed emotions. I've done it both ways. Some schools have a separate data meeting. I know when I was in area superintendent in Dallas, we had a monthly data meeting, and then we also had weekly professional learning communities. So some people have cross-grade level or cross-subject level data meetings where they talk about the data and pull out what they think is critical or essential. And then that is what's taken or given to the PLC to dig a little bit deeper into and then to spend really more time in the planning and discussion. So, some people say it all needs to be in the same meeting. It just depends on your time commitment and, the particular philosophies that you're following. But, I'm a huge fan of what they're doing at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. They've got some really good things going on. But their stance is to do the professional learning communities weekly and those to be very instructionally driven, focused on, some data pieces, but really on planning and unpacking standards and designing great learning, analyzing student work samples. I think that was mentioned as well. That's an excellent, excellent tool. And really thinking through that lesson and the protocols. And then doing a monthly data meeting that is cross-grade level or cross-content. So that way, if you see something, I think somebody put in here, what do you do when you have a standard that's a need to know in one grade level, but it's nice to know in another? So maybe PLCs by content are more effective. That's kind of the bridge that Harvard advocates, is data is cross-grade level, cross-content, whereas your professional learning communities are usually by content or grade level, simply because you want there to be, if you're in a large school, some consistency from teacher to teacher with subject areas, but also, too, to really get great planning, because the more teachers' heads you have put together to plan instruction, the more effective it's going to be.
Bossier Parish is actually using our exact textbook right now to implement PLCs across the parish. I'm not teaching this year, but as part of my internship, I have sat in on all the PLCs at my school, which has been great because you see different grade levels.
Yeah.
So they are attempting to do it just like the book says. They decided on what standards were most important. They've been writing common assessments. They've been meeting, and so I think they're making every effort. And I don't know if you knew this, but Mike Mattis addressed our whole parish in January in Bossier. So.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's awesome. I wish I could have come.
I should have told you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, he was great. He talked a lot about the RTI portion of the PLC, and after you get the data, and then what do you do from there? Because we implemented PLCs in Bossier Parish last year, and now we're kind of moving into the RTI phase of it this year. And so, like in our PLCs, we haven't known. Okay, we did these formative assessments, we gave them. Now what do we do? With the data and stuff like that. So he, kind of talked to us about that, and he was fabulous.
Yeah, he's definitely, guys, you might want to just do a YouTube search or Google search on him. Yeah, he's got some great information to share. One thing I would say, Alicia, about the RTI process, I hope everybody knows what that is, the response to intervention. One, I wouldn't say complaint, but, most people put it into an inverted triangle, where you have your tier 1 instruction, tier 2, tier 3, on down the line. What I think that kind of gets missed in that is those kids who are performing above grade level. They do great with tier 1 instruction, then what? And we tend to forget them. So those are your gifted, talented kind of kids. So I add a layer above that inverted triangle. And so while we also talk about RTI, don't forget to talk about enrichment for your best and brightest. Because historically, what happens over time when we don't take care of our gifted and talented kids like that, we will dumb them down to grade level. When I was principal at Booker T. Washington High School in Dallas, they were just really proud of their great results. And I'm like, really? It's my first year there. So, you guys are doing a great job. You're pulling kids up 2, 3, 4 grade levels, and that's amazing. I said, but did you also know in the process you're dumbing down your kids? So the best and brightest that were coming in 2 to 3 grade levels higher in 9th grade. By the time they graduated, we had them all nice and average. So that RTI piece it's wonderful and great, but like I said, don't forget to do that other level as well. Okay.
I wanted to do that at our school, you know, to pull everyone out of class, all students, and give those kids who need help, you know, who are struggling that help, but also take those kids who've already mastered it and give them additional, you know, challenges and activities and stuff like that, because I think we do forget about that. I teach pre-AP, and a lot of times I'm trying to find activities to challenge those kids and, you know, to add to the curriculum. So.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Alicia, I know a principal in Dallas I need to hook you up with, because she has like the most masterful plan I've ever seen on how to do that. And her school, it was a pretty high performing school anyway, but since then she went from like 20% at college or college level readiness, because in Texas that's how the standards are. You have, you know, grade level, then college ready, to 96% college ready. And she did that by focusing on her kids who, like I said, they were just pulling them down to average. The principal her name is Melanie Manns, and she's at Stonewall, well, they've changed the school name. I don't know what the new name is, but it was Stonewall Jackson Elementary School in Dallas. But I'll send you her contact information. I've got a couple that are really superstars. I've got one in high school, one in middle, one in elementary. I've got 3 good examples. So I'll send you their information, and I'll forewarn them that y'all might be contacting them. But they are super smart and really, they take research and actually implement it highly effectively. Okay. Okay, well, we've got about 2-3 minutes left. What other questions or comments do you guys have? Okay, well, like I said, I did this whole presentation tonight, but we didn't even talk about most of it. So just when you have a chance, you know, you're probably pretty familiar with experiential learning as well as service learning. But, you know, remember too, those things that we want to do with our students oftentimes translate really, really well with adults in a professional learning community. So if we want learning to stick, we need to make it experiential. We need to make it tied to service. We need to make it a part of something real, so that our teachers feel like we're not just wasting their time and energy. Okay. All right. So I just need to make a note. Y'all want to know want to talk to Roxy. She's my high school principal. Chandra. They all happen to be women. Sorry about that. Melanie, and you know what? I'll throw Ben in there too. He's amazing. We used to call him Doogie Howser, but anyway. He's extremely young and like super smart, super smart. Okay. All right, guys. Well, unless you guys have any other burning questions, going once. Sorry.
I do have a PowerPoint presentation for the group presentation. Mm-hmm. Do you just want the regular slides, or do you want anything in the notes section discussing anything that we would put on the slide itself?
No, I don't need notes or anything. Just do the actual slides. Like, that's all I'm looking for.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting and the recording. So thank y'all. Have a great night, and we will see you next week. Bye.